Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. And today, you know what? No better way than staying out of the cold weather and the blustery winter day. But you know what? Us all have a sit around and talk about some of the big questions that a lot of you viewers had all year. I mean, it's been a wonderful year as we get very close to the year end of 2025. There's been a lot of amazing change in the channel, a lot of change of trajectory, and definitely perspective. You know, we've got a new toy in the garage, and certainly there's lots of questions that you've all had along the way. So let's just break this down. I'm going to go through a bunch of questions that a lot of you have had over the year. I'm going to pick and choose some random questions, and hopefully I can answer some of those for you. But let's just take it from the top. Sit back, grab your bucket of popcorn, maybe a coffee, and just stay warm. And let's get right from the top here, shall we? So I'm going through some questions. Why don't we start with a question by Hayduck says, which 3 Series are good? He was watching a video of mine that was about the best BMWs that can last over 250,000 miles. And he was inspired. He asked the question, which 3 Series are good? Well, the fact remains is it's very spotty history in the 3 Series world for BMWs. I mean, you go back to the N52, had some good engines. Some of their older, naturally aspirated inline sixes were some of their highlights. Then they went through some spotty periods. '07, they had that N54 with the twin turbo. Lots of problems. Okay, but as they progressed, then they brought in things like the N55, which was a little bit better. Along the whole time, they created different generations of diesel and 4-cylinder engines. Many of those came and went, some better than some others. But really, if you want to break it down, the best 3 Series BMWs generally come with some of the older E30, E46 generation NA engines, no turbos. And if you're talking about newer cars, newer 3 Series, I'd strongly advise going something 2019, 2020 and newer. You can get into a 330, which is a 4-banger, or the 340, which is a 6-cylinder. That's the ultimate. The B58 everybody talks about. There were some problems with some early plastic oil pump system issues and dual coolant reservoir leaks, PCV problems. But, you know, by and large, it's still a pretty reliable engine and vastly better than some of its predecessors. So that being said, which 3 Series are good? Basically, stick to anything within the last 5 years and you should be golden. Now, or, of course, any of the older NA engines. Now, as we go through our list, we have a lot of other great questions. And hopefully that I can answer some of the questions that a lot of you have as we go through this. Now, let's just see here. We have, what are your thoughts on plug-in hybrids? And I had a viewer named Diane Sharp that asked the question, what are your thoughts on hybrids? Well, hybrids, that's a hybrid right there. As you can see that little blue light over there? That's the charger. And so you can plug it into your wall outlet. It's good. You get a significant amount of range. Well, not really much with these ones. Some of the Toyotas rock, you know, that 40, 50 kilometers on a charge without using any gas. This one's good for about 25 kilometers, and I think that's a stretch, to be honest. But what's good about plug-in hybrids, you can plug it in, do your short trips to the grocery store, come back and never start your engine. I love that. That's a plug-in hybrid. A regular hybrid is just always on board, charging, discharging, charging, discharging. You don't need to plug it in, but it's constantly up and down. It does provide some better economy, and the electric portion kicks in more when needed or less when you're, say, on the highway. So my personal opinion, I'm not the biggest fan of regular hybrid vehicles. I feel like it's a lot of extra technology in there that you're probably going to end up costing you down the road in batteries and other systems that are going to be problematic. Plug-in hybrids, like we find in a car like this, or like an NX450 Plus H in the Lexus, or even the Toyota RAV4 Prime, or the Prius Prime, and some of those plug-in hybrids, and there's more and more of those. Mitsubishi has them, and you're finding more. I think those are good because you can get out there, you can plug it in, drive to your destination, and if you're doing lots of short trips, maybe you work close to home, you can pretty much spend your whole week to and from, charge it every evening, and never use any gas. And I love that. I love that flexibility and the economy. But also, most plug-in hybrids give you a little boost, so when you want to get up and go, it gives you better boost. This here, no doubt. You get an extra 160, 170 horsepower of electric power alone. And of course, you know, that 25 kilometer range of free range. So plug-in hybrids, I like. Regular hybrids, not the biggest fan. But I mean, to each their own. Let's just see here. What else do we have? We have, somebody asked, Michael Chiampas says, How would you rank the 24 to 25 Hyundai Venue? And this is one of my ranking videos where I go through a car lot and I talk about some of the worst and the best. The Hyundai Venue is not a particularly good vehicle in my opinion. That being said, it's cheap and it's affordable. And sometimes you just need something like that. You need something that you know is probably not going to last you forever, but you need something to get you through for the next 5, 7, 6, whatever, some odd years. And it'll do that. It'll do it just fine. It's going to be cheap on gas. The insurance costs are going to be low. And if you have to put a set of brakes in it, it's going to be really cheap. So running costs are going to be cheap on it. That being said, it's a Hyundai. It's their base trim vehicle. It's not the best product out there. And certainly I would expect you probably won't get much more than 100,000 miles out of it. And then it's going to be throwaway. So that's my own personal opinion. And I would rank that in terms of out of a 5-star system, I would rank that at about a 2.5 out of 5 star. Somebody here asked me, Jib Jab asked me, so the Frontier is not more reliable than the Tacoma? I actually believe it could be. The Tacoma, of course, in the newest generations, we know that 2.4 Turbo 4, and they've changed it. The older Tacomas were great. The older Tacomas had a V6, say 3.5 liters. They were workhorses. You can get an auto or a manual. Of course, you can still get an auto or a manual, but now the autos having problems at 8 speeds, have a bunch of torque converter issues. There's been lots of issues out of the gate there. The manual doesn't drive particularly well either. There's been some troubles there. So I believe Toyota will get their act together. That said, the new Tacoma isn't necessarily the most reliable offering. The new Nissan Frontier, which has been around for a bit, is much, much better in my own personal opinion. It's a simpler truck. It's not as pretty, unless you get one of the glossy, the bright oranges or something like that. But the Frontier gives you a 3.8 liter V6, not unlike what you get in the GTR. It's not that high a performance. It's about that 270, 280 horsepower, torque converter automatic. That's a nice option. So you get a regular transmission and you get a regular V6, and both of which are really going away these days. So the new Frontier is actually a pretty reliable little truck. And it made my list of some of the best small trucks you should be considering buying. So, yeah, at this point, as we stand right now, I would actually put the new Frontier up against a Tacoma any day for durability. Now, that said, in a few more years, who knows? Time will tell. But I truly do believe that sticking with some of the older tech, like the Frontier is a little bit of an older generational vehicle, will pay dividends for many, many years, because that truck will probably last a long time. It's a simpler vehicle. Let's just see here. What else do we got here? I'm going to scroll on down. Lots of great comments here. We have Everett Sager, asked the question. The Acura 1.5 turbo is awfully small. Will the small size buy a stress on the engine on the long term? It's in the Acura as well. So you're talking, Everett's asking about the 1.5 Honda engine that you're finding not just in the Honda Civics, CR-Vs, it's a lot of their smaller vehicles. You're even finding them, of course, in the Acura lineups. And they perform well. They're economical. They have a nice little zinginess to them. But there's been that oil and fuel dilution problem that, some people that are defenders of Honda will say that, no, it's all fixed. It's good. They reprogram. They use different oil and life's grand. But it's still a small displacement engine. Pushing hard with turbos and direct fuel injection means it's not set up for success, for huge miles. And there's going to be people out there that say, Mark, you know what? You're out to lunch. Clearly it's a more reliable car than you give it credit for. And I would say, overall, I like them. The 1.5 in the Acura Integra, I gave it as a recommended for, one of the more reliable, cost-effective luxury vehicles. And it is, and I don't dispute that. But unfortunately, with this engine, you've got to do more frequent oil services. You will put more gas into the oil chamber down in the bottom of the case. That will start to wreak havoc. And there have been some failures, engine failures, because of too much fuel in the bottom. They mix it up. And gas, let's face it, is a solvent. So it chews away at the oil's ability to lubricate bottom end of the engine. So if it were me, it's not my favorite engine. I think there's certainly a lot worse. It's not, in my opinion, it's not Honda's highlight. That being said, I wouldn't run scared of it. Just know that it has those areas and you want to address that. So you want to make sure you're doing more frequent oil services. Don't extend them. Uh, a lot of cold starts aren't going to be doing it very well because during cold start, everything's tight or looser, tighter, so to speak. You're pushing fuel tends to get past the rings a little bit more in colder engines, and driving off hard tends to do them no good either. So the best thing is use the right oil, more frequent oil services, and basically proper warm up, proper cool down, and no going hard until the engine's properly warm. Then and only then you can probably get some miles out of that engine. But the 1.5 has had some problems along the way. Let me just see here. What else do we got? We have Vincent. Vincent, definitely long-term follower, a truly great supporter of the channel, constantly reaches out and always offering up some great points. And Vincent says, why don't they just put bigger gas tanks on the trucks and SUVs? Because I was referencing the 2026 model years that are coming up. And the point is, well, they're trying to get these vehicles that go longer distances, and there's a lot of this talk about economy. But where Vincent's coming from is sticking with something a little bit more old school, something that's easier to fix. If you break down in the middle of nowhere, chances are, a conventional engine's repairable by anybody, even a small Joe's small shop, just outside, in the middle of the desert if you want. So the idea behind that is, why don't they make bigger gas tanks, get longer ranges, and then you can go the distance. So great point, Vincent. And, we know it's a combination of that versus fuel efficiency. We know, unfortunately, the carb standards are taking a toll. They're sort of pushing these manufacturers to create smaller and smaller and more fuel efficient engines as the years go on. And this is just the way it is. That's just the reality of how this is, the system's working now. EPA standards are getting stricter. That said, what we're seeing in the US is a little bit of a pushback and a retraction in some of those situations. But at the end of the day, the whole world is being sort of strongly nudged towards EVs. By 2035, EU7 regulations is pushing a lot of these European brands down that path, as well as competing with the Chinese markets means that they're, everybody in the world, if they want to compete in one of the biggest markets in China, they have to create products that Chinese buyers will buy. So, they're competing with some of those manufacturers like BYD. And unfortunately, what that means is if you don't have the competition in your electric vehicle space, you're not going to sell vehicles in one of the biggest markets. In some of the smaller markets or even North America, a lot of buyers tend to lean more towards internal combustion vehicles. That said, they still have to be competitive. So companies like, say, Mercedes and Volkswagen not only should be servicing the electric market, but they need to really look back and take a good hard look at what all the buyers are interested in. And it's not just EVs. Hybrids might be part of it, and certainly ICE might be part of it. How do we make our ICE engines better? Well, maybe look at the efficiency. Don't downsize. 1.5s, 3 cylinders, those are undesirable. Nobody wants that. But, manufacturers are always kind of stuck behind a rock in a hard place, and that seems to be the way it seems to go. Let's just roll down, see what else we have here. Let's see. I'm going to keep going. Lots of great comments, and I hope you're all enjoying your Christmas break here. Hope you're all enjoying it. Let's just see. Let me see as I scroll on down. Somebody asked the question here. Nope, I can't go there. I don't want to do a shout out there in that case. Somebody here, we have Mac H Daddy 6 offers up a point, and he says, and this was referencing depreciation and the quality and reliability of luxury cars, and specifically even we talk about Mercedes-Benz. And he says, what I've observed is that German cars, it's not whether you can afford to buy them, but rather whether you can afford to maintain them. That's right. And that's a great point, Mac Daddy. I did videos this year as well addressing that very topic. Is the cheapest BMW will be the most expensive BMW you'll own, and the reason I say that is because the reason cars might be cheap is they've probably got higher mileage, they're older, and unfortunately, a lot of these luxury cars, especially the German cars, if they've been neglected or abused, or they haven't been treated right, parts fall off, and the owners, the fourth or fifth owner, stops fixing some of those things. That's when things get really expensive. So yeah, if you buy a new one, you're paying the big payments. There's two different trains of thought. Some people believe in only buying brand new because then they're dealing with only vehicles that are covered under warranty. They're protected from failures, and they'll walk out after a lease or a finance. They'll walk out after 2, 3, 4 years, and they don't worry about it. They get to enjoy their favorite German sports car or luxury car and not even think twice. Then there's those that traditionally, like myself, who buy a car that's in that 3 to 4 year time frame that gets me into one of my favorite luxury cars or sports cars that, quite honestly, is, well, let's just put it this way, at 50 to 60% depreciation, I'm willing to take on some of those nuances, a new set of brakes and some tires. Looking at the money I've saved up front, I can still get into say a 5-year-old car with maybe 75,000 kilometers on it. And if I can get, say 30, 40% off the top because of depreciation, I'm still getting most of the service life, but I'm able to recognize that even if it might need a few repairs, I can tackle that and I'm still way dollars ahead. So there's different ways to look at it. But yes, older luxury cars, they start to add up in repairs and the costs do get cost prohibitive. And I mean, what does that mean? That means if you can't afford a new one, you probably can't afford a used one because a used one can sometimes break the bank. I mean, we have our E60 M5 right here. It's a classic example of if you couldn't afford it new, you probably can't afford it used because there's lots of really expensive repairs that come with those cars. Now let's just keep on going. What else do we go? Somebody here says, WCT 8449 says, 2006 was the last year GM made a reliable V8. Yeah, that's probably not too far from the truth. I hate to say this. What I've seen, General Motors is, they went in this cylinder deactivation programs with their 5.3s, breaking rockers and lifters, swapping out heads, swapping out engine parts, replacing engines. Lots of problems with their 5.3s. Transmissions are 8-speed. Their 10-speed autos have been somewhat problematic. Now in newer trucks, we're finding also these fuel system modules that are crapping out at 10 to 15,000 miles on both their gas and their diesel engines. That's a big problem. We're talking about body parts coming off, handles ripping apart, electronics and electrics not working properly. Most importantly, even the 6.2 and the L87 being a big, big issue. And we, General Motors back in the day, I used to come from I grew up on a farm, and we used to love the GM trucks. We weren't the Ford family, we were the Chevy family and the GM, and we often just bought the GM trucks. We had late 70s, early 80s, into the 80s GM trucks on the farm, and they were workhorses. They were unstoppable. The old 350, that was the best engine they've ever made. It's too bad they didn't continue down that path, or the first generation of the 5.3. But then they introduced the cylinder deactivation, try to improve economy. Next thing you know, they went down a train of quality problems that just never stopped. And here we are today. And there's some truth to that. The newer stuff in General Motors, from what I can tell, is not all that reliable. And so that's my own personal experience with it. I've seen enough to tell me that. And unless I see otherwise, I'll continue down that conversation piece. But let's just see. And again, hopefully you've got that hot beverage because, again, Christmas, it's a wonderful time to just be sitting around with friends and family and relaxing and staying warm with that hot cup of coffee or cocoa. It's just wonderful. Somebody here, Michael Ronaldo asks, how much longer will Nissan last approximately? That's a tough call because that could go either way. We keep talking about the fact that Nissan is on borrowed time, and I believe that's totally true. There's a huge risk right now for Nissan. They had a chance to team up with Honda. Honda wanted to kind of call them a subsidiary. Nissan didn't want any part of that. Then they were swapping out CEOs, CFOs. There's been all kinds of organizational shuffling. They've lost thousands of employees for the sake of downsizing. They were selling buildings and assets, just trying to free up some cash. The problem with that, they don't have the cash flow and the budget to further enhance and create more interesting models. That said, they are talking about coming out a Nismo Z car that gives you the manual, so they're trying to extend that. They're looking at eventually transitioning that into a hybrid driver or even maybe a full electric with a few years. Nissan's got one of the best small trucks. I already mentioned the Frontier. It's a great little truck. Some of their other vehicles aren't great, but they sell in lots, big numbers. I mean, the Rogues aren't not a great vehicle, variable compression, CVTs. I'm not a fan, but they sell, and lots of incentives seem to be moving metal. But you know what? I guess what I'll say is it really depends. I mean, where the market goes, if they can also continue developing more interesting products that are more competitive with the Toyotas and the Hondas, time will tell. We'll see if they're able to dig themselves out of this hole. Currently, they're barely hanging on by a thread. They're losing money. They're hemorrhaging cash every single quarter. It seems like things are getting worse and worse. Time will tell. I don't know how much time is left, but we also have a gentleman here by the name of Gray Huska who asks a question. Do you think F-Type, especially the R and SVR, will become collectible in time like the E-Types? The best sounding supercharged V8, classic styling, analog interior. I feel like they're so undervalued compared to the R8s, MSRP, and where they still are. Yeah, Gray Huska, great point. I sold my Jag. I used to have it parked right there. Everybody knows on the channel, the OGs, that I had an F-Type R for about 4 years, and I never regretted a moment of it. I still stand that it's still one of the best cars out there, especially for the bang for the buck. Best sounding cars. It's a Jekyll and Hyde. It's easy to use every day, but it also is a beast, and you can go tracking that a little bit. And it's comfortable and it's stylish. I still fall in love with the car. Every time I see an R with the quad exhaust, sit low, the fat haunches, I'm in love with that car. Every time I see a beautiful SVR or an R, I actually like the R better than the SVR, but I mean, to each their own. The SVR is the upscale. I'm not the biggest fan of that sort of front fender finishing, but nonetheless, it's a rarer car and it's got more value and with a wee bit more power. I love those cars. Do I think they'll be collectible? I don't think so. I'd love them to be. If I see that trend again, I may try to find and scramble and get another good one just to stuff in the garage. But I don't know. I think with Jaguar, with their branding, I think they kind of ruined themselves. They sent a lot of loyalists down the road to look at other options. It's a great car, great engine, and there will be those popular circles of people that love those cars. But I feel like the brand has been destroyed. It's been run through the mud over and over. And as a standalone car, it has huge value and huge potential to be a collectible. And I could be wrong. It could, in fact, find that way. It could snake its way through that collectability space. But the problem is the overall brand is a mess right now. It's a truly a mess. And that's where I think, unfortunately, unless Jaguar does something to really reverse that course, I don't know if the collectability will ever be there, but that's and there's a large number of them. They were produced in pretty substantial numbers. What else do we have here? Let me just see here. Said, what happens to owners of their product if JRCD go under? So Jeep, Ram, Dodge, Chrysler. Mike Fair asked this. Great point there, Mike. Mike's been a long-standing viewer as well and support of the channel. Shout out, Mike. And you know what? What happens to those owners? Well, when they file for chapter, 11, chapter 7, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 through whatever, when they go bankrupt, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I truly don't know if they'll totally go under because there's enough cash flow with the whole organization and they sort of push and pull. This one's going under, they refinance with one of those that's making profits. Jeep and Ram are making money. Chrysler's in the toilet. Dodge isn't doing well, and neither is Alfa Romeo or Maserati. But as it stands, Stellantis is struggling to sell cars in some spaces, in others they're doing just fine. So I think it's a push-pull. If anything, I think they just vaporize a brand. But the problem with that is what happens if you're driving a Chrysler and then they wipe that brand out? Well, I think there's a reality. When you file for the chapter, there's usually some facts, some requirements that they stock parts for, say, 5 years, 2 years. It's usually in an arrangement or a contract, but they usually have to, before it's approved, they actually have to stock parts for so long. They have to have support for so long. Like we're seeing with some of these startup EV companies that are going under as well, that they have to support the buyers for a period of time. That being said, they're also from a brand that has a lot of interchangeability between Chrysler and Dodge and Ram. So I truly believe, even with Jeep, a lot of those parts are interchangeable. I think there's going to be a long period of time where it doesn't matter, even if you're driving a Chrysler and it goes under, you're probably going to have parts and the service shops all going to be the same. So I don't think that's going to be a big issue for the most part for the foreseeable future, but that's my own take on it. Let's just see. Let's scan down. And you know what I'm going to do as well, again, in case you missed it, happy birthday. Happy birthday. Anybody whose birthday is on Christmas or December 25th. Happy birthday. And Merry Christmas to everybody else. Let me just see here. I will run down and give a shout out here as well to the members on the channel. Somebody has, how many YouTube channels do you have? Just asking. That's coming from Pallasium. I have a few. I have 6-speed car reviews, which, that's dedicated just reviews, nothing but. I have Exotic Car Play Place, as you know, and Easy Car Buying. So hopefully that helps you with that. Would you suggest a brand new GLC 300? Somebody asked me, who is that? That would be Elvar, what is that? Sir Elyar Gashev said, would you support a brand new GLC 300? GLC 300 is the same platform as our C300. And we've had some problems. Squeaky front end, squeaky wheel, a couple body panels that seem to pop off randomly when we hit a hard bump. We've had the PCV fail, but that's covered under the extended warranty. The rest of the body works holding up well. The technology works well and seamlessly. The car starts and it's perfect. We've had some crap codes pop out, but I think that was a lot of I'll just say it. What we saw was the dealer spraying water under the engine compartment. You get water in connections. That's never good. Plus, we had a weak battery. It's a combination. It hits extreme weather, and we started seeing these faults. But overall, yeah, we've had some glitches, but overall, it's reliable. It's never let us down. The tech works flawlessly. The car's amazing to look at. It has good performance and good fuel economy. So overall, I would recommend a GLC 300 with the caveat that there may be a few issues, and get that PCV done. Make sure that's done under the extended warranty. But again, that being said, overall, I would probably recommend it for that price point. But I would also recommend that if you're looking at that, be sure to give BMW's X3 a look too. Because if you're looking at the GLC 300, you might want to look at the GLC 43, the AMG version, which is even better, because that gives you the V6, which was a better engine. Or look at BMW, the X3, which is the 3.0, or the M40i. So take a look at the X3s as well. That would be my recommendation if you're looking at those. What else do we have? Any plastic that can be torqued? Oh, yeah, okay. What else do we have here? We have, so we scroll, lots of scrolling to do here. This is their time 782 asks a great question, and we're seeing more and more of this actually. Says, why the F do you need a truck with a 6.2 liter engine to just go to the mall? That's a good point. And that's the thing, what trucks have become today. Trucks have become more than just work vehicles. And that's the problem. A lot of people buy them as a luxury item. They buy the upscale versions, get sunroofs and heated and cooled seats, your crew cab with all the features and vibrating this and cooling that. Next thing you know, you spent $120,000 on a truck The problem is the OEMs see that and the willingness for the people that are well-heeled buying those trucks. And a lot of those people aren't using them for anything other than driving them to work downtown. Maybe they haul a little boat twice a year, but other than that, that's what they're driving every day. But the downside is that pushes the prices up. Supply and demand, it kicks in like a son of a gun, right? And then those that are actually needing them for contract work or work, find the vehicles now are, the prices have gone up as a result. So it does beg the question. I like driving a truck myself, but it really does, beg the question. Here we have Benzo 7087 asks or says to me, BMW is the best and always was telling over the years. Do you still own the BMW M5? I still own the M5 right there, Benzo. So Benzo, if you're asking, there's the M5 right there. And I hope that answers for you. I love this car. It's not a cheap car to run. It's going to cost you maintenance and money, but I love this thing. I fall in love with this. I open the garage and I look at this thing and, look at this. I mean, listen to that. You hear the SMG pump? So again, now we're getting into the membership, and I want a special shout out to all the members that have supported, the extra support that they've shown, all the support from all of you viewers, as well as subscribers who come up day in, day out, week in, week out, and watch my content. But I do want a special shout out to Dave Walquist. Thank you so much, Dave. I know you've been around a while, asking lots of great questions. Definitely a fan of BMW. Albasan Y as well. Thank you so much. A lot of great questions from you too. Very inquisitive, and I appreciate that. Chip Barfield. Thank you so much, Chip. Again, it's been great having you as well, and I really appreciate the extra support. Brian Kelly, same thing. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for helping out and the extra support. It means a lot. Winter Serenia. Thanks, Winter. I really do appreciate that as well, and hope you're having a wonderful Christmas too. As well, we have Trippin' with Dumas. Thanks, Trippin' with Dumas. I know we see you coming around a lot for the videos, the content, and as well as some of the live streams. Thanks so much for that. We also have Clark Olson. Thanks, Clark Olson. I really do appreciate it. And I do thanks. I know, obviously, the engagement you've provided. Bill Wickert. Thanks, Bill. Bill Wickert is definitely a long-standing supporter as well. I've been seeing some really technical questions coming out of there, Bill, and thank you so much. Scott Hunziker. Thanks, Scott. Again, thanks. Hope you're having a wonderful Christmas as well and you're staying warm. Thanks, Scott, for the extra support. Marcel Farrell. Thanks, Marcel. Also, I know you love your BMWs. Thank you so much there, Marcel. And thanks again for all the questions, and hope I can help you along the way as I go. Joshua K. JK Carp. Thanks, Joshua. Josh, I do appreciate the support. It does mean a lot. And the membership does show that, there's extra support, and I want to give you a shout out for that. And as well, one of the longest standing members that have been around for a long time, Thomas Helm. Thank you so much, Thomas. You've been around here for 31 months. Thanks, Thomas. Well, 31 now, we're even a little bit closer to 32 months. Thanks, Thomas. I really appreciate the long-standing support. Thomas, you always have a lot of great insight, a lot of great thoughts, and I hope the weather's a little better on the coast. You're over on the coast, kind of down more in the Washington area, and I'm over here, of course, in the prairies. We got the snow, we got the cold weather. You've got maybe a little bit of rain. Hopefully the weather's holding up down there for you. I know, Thomas, you're another passionate Porsche owner, enthusiast. We know the brand's pricey. The prices are going up, but we also appreciate them for what they are. So thanks, Thomas. I really do appreciate the long-standing support. But again, as always, everybody, I hope you all have a wonderful, Merry Christmas. Hope you have a great week. And of course, be safe out there. If you're out driving around, definitely on the New Year's, don't be afraid to get an Uber, catch a ride, don't be getting behind the wheel after enjoying yourself at a party. Definitely make sure you get a ride from somebody who has not been indulging. But I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas, New Year's, and beyond. And 2026 is going to be an absolute crazy year coming up. Things are set to change in a great way. Hope to see each and every one in the next one, everybody. Have a wonderful Christmas and New Year, and we'll talk to you all real soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.